Good morning, everyone. There we go. Now we got them all. Welcome, welcome. Hopefully everyone has had a fantastic weekend. Hopefully you're all able to, kind of coming into Monday yesterday a little bit slow. There wasn't really a whole lot going on, and now we're coming into Tuesday. Things are starting to kind of wake up a little bit. So kind of feels like we're coming into sort of a Monday with yesterday's meh sort of movement. We did have some decent rotation to the upside with that giant rally, but then at the end of the day, it just did nothing all night. I mean, it hasn't done anything. So it's kind of like what was the last time? Where was it? Oh, it was over here on the 23rd, where the market just did absolutely nothing, and then finally broke out of it. We're kind of in that scenario again where nothing's happening. Anyway, before we go into the technicals and all the fun stuff here, on the left side of the screen, make sure to read through the live trader morning prep PDF. Very important to go through and understand everything that is inside there. I just want to take a second to give a shout out to our latest members that joined overnight. Thank you so much for the support. I'm pumped to have you on the family with us here over on SSFTG. If you aren't a member of SSFTG, or you have, or maybe you haven't joined as a part of the YouTube family, or either way, check out the join button below the stream to gain access before our next private webinar. Get access to the Discord chat and the awesome badge next to your name here on YouTube, of course, to show your support. If you are trying to figure out what it is exactly that we're doing here, it can be a little bit tricky sometimes. Look no further than the Day Trading Academy. You can find that over on SFTG. It comes packed with 19 plus hours of material loaded for you, not including the hundreds of hours of live content and everything else that we've got going on every day here. Please keep in mind, with that being said, on the YouTube side of things, that broadcast on YouTube does have between a 3 and 30 second delay, depending on when you're logging in, where you're logging in, etc. But if you want to level up to VIP status, you can enjoy exclusive permanent access to our non-delayed live analysis stream via Zoom direct meetings, as well as monthly VIP webinars, which we just had this past weekend, private VIP events, one-on-one scheduling access, all kinds of cool stuff. So whether you're here and you're totally new, or you're a veteran over on the VIP stream, welcome. I'm glad to have you here with me today. So let's take a look at some charts, take a look at some news, see what's going on today, and we can finally dig into the technicals, because there's definitely a lot of fun stuff going on here. So while you're at it, don't forget to grab your morning DP levels. Those are posted for you this morning with all of the major turning points and areas of interest from the major 7 markets that we trade. Looking at the news calendar, first off, we can see that we've got some news. CB consumer confidence at 10 o'clock. Forecast is 113. That's really it, though. Again, the news calendar is pretty light. Last week was abysmal in terms of news announcements. This week, at least... Hopefully it's a little bit better, but we haven't had any big news that we've passed or anything like that. So the only large news that we have today is going to be at 10 o'clock with the CB consumer confidence for April. The forecast 113. Later this afternoon, of course, it is Tuesday, so we have the API weekly crude oil stocks. Gives us a heads up as to what to expect for Wednesday. The forecast for that, at least for today, is 0.375. Lately, they've not even been close. So I don't know. We'll see what that wants to come out as. That'll give us a clue for tomorrow's crude action. 10 o'clock news, that's it. First off, over on the NASDAQ, we've got this really nice continuation rally to the upside. Again, so far this morning, we've done absolutely zero. It's just gone nowhere. Yesterday, we did have that bit of a pullback from Sunday, and buyers aggressively bought into that, ripping the market all the way up, finding a bit of a pause at around noon. It seems like they took a little bit of a lunch going into 12 o'clock, continued the rally up into 3, 4 into the end of the day, and since then, nothing's really happened. If we look at the overall move from the top to the bottom, where sellers were trying to get something going, awesome, gotta love bug data. That's gonna make it really awkward, isn't it? Crap, that's not gonna work on a 15? I wonder if it'll work. Hang on. Let me see if I can get it to work on a 500 tick. I'm just curious. Like, why is it that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't? Didn't get that pullback, by the way. It doesn't work here either. Okay, so it is definitely the data that's messed up then. Because it doesn't matter what chart I'm on, it just doesn't work. It's a bit of a bummer. Well, from a structural perspective, at least, we do have a very obvious range low that is held off of those 13,730s. Really, we know already, without even looking at the volume, that 750s was the big zone. That level has been haunting the NASDAQ for quite a while now. Well, not really much you can do, I guess. We got that support off those the 750s again, ripped the market all the way back up, and we finally popped to another new high. And this is important because this last low couldn't break a new low. Okay, well, technically then that is a higher low. It may not feel like it, but man alive, that was a higher low. So we do have a rotation off the lows, higher low, new high, higher low, higher high. This is what you need in order for a trend to resume, right? They've already proven themselves. They proved themselves and they were able to break above over here. So it's no wonder that buyers are buying into that pullback. But we've got this massive stagnation. And a lot of times the market will want to stagnate before a big move. Obviously, it's got to accumulate. But it also will usually do a little bit of a trap move. And that trap move is typically the precursor before the large move, but that trap will usually come down to a structural level of interest. So they'll go down and they'll tap a zone of support or a zone of resistance, etc. Let's see here. It's not really... Ugh, man. Maybe off the highs? This doesn't look like anything wants to really line up. What a nasty looking wedge. Honestly, it feels like we're missing part of the story, doesn't it? I mean, it's almost as if the market needs to pull back a little bit and give us that leg to kind of complete the story. Because as it stands right now, we really don't have that. I guess with that in mind, spike and channel lows could potentially operate off that. That's about it, though. Go over on the S&P. S&P, obviously, a very similar situation, as you would expect. But the big thing that we've got going on right now when it comes to the S&P is, I mean, look at this. Look at this break on the highs. What kind of hot garbage is this? Like, just, I mean, it poked its head above the top and then whacked right back down. Massive failure on the highs, just couldn't get the job done. Very obviously, we've got some resistance a little bit lower ahead of that, but just an absolute failure on the top. We are still continuing to see higher lows, so, I mean, I got to give it to the buyers. They're still trying to hold it up, but realistically, I mean, man, they're not proving a whole lot, you know? And that doesn't necessarily mean that this is the top and we're going to go collapsing all the way back down. But what that does tell us is if we combine that story, along with the MACD's massive divergences off the top and the undertow, that gives us a really big clue to expect at least a bigger pullback. L1, how about instead of an L1, looking for an L2? Makes a lot of sense. And look at where L2 lines up. Inside double bottom off 41.65. Huge amounts of support there. So if the market can get a little bit of a dip back down, right there, that's the hot spot, 41.65. For now, as long as we don't make a new high, of course. There, just like that. So see if they can get a little bit of a dip back down on the S&P. As far as the volume is concerned, looking at this last leg down, if it'll let me, of course. Hey, it did. Awesome. We can see that they did build, not exactly a bottom-weighted POC, but they built it kind of in the middle, slid a little bit further. We can see that eventually it did work its way back above there. So, I mean, very obviously, if we can get a pullback to something like that, that would be absolutely incredible. Will something like that happen? Probably not. If we look from the bottom to the top and we look at the overall volume cluster, it would be really nice if we could see a volume node inside of this 60 to 65. Top-weighted POC makes that a little bit tough, though. Yikes. That's going to make it a little bit harder to want to be the first one of the party on the buy side, unless the volume shifts a little bit. But at the moment, the POC is smack on top of settlement. There's some issues here with the S&P. Gonna have to give it some wiggle room. Over on gold, Can zoom in a little bit closer here. Don't have to be that far out. We've got a nice little pullback. Again, it's just consolidated. We're range bound. There's not a whole lot going on, but we are seeing more continued support and a bit more proof off of these lows of the potential spike in channel-ish type thing going on here. Originally, this did not look very good, right? If you were to draw this off the bottom to the top and then looked at what it did over here, I mean, we're talking about how each candle individually was kind of supporting and resisting this zone, but on the 15-minute perspective, there really wasn't a whole lot to work with until it broke down and came back. Now we've got proof. So this is a really nice potential channel, and, well, we just cycled off the lows. So with that in mind, if we look at the overall volume from the top, and that was the peak way over here, all the way to the bottom, and we have 3 very obvious higher lows, we can see accumulation volume into the lows, and the assumption here is that these are longs, and they are in profitable territory. So that's a lot of important information right there. So I think it's safe to say that bulls are looking for this to rotate back up again. And if you look at the nearest candle, look what it did. Snapped all the way back down, right back to that break-even point, real close. Ricocheted right back up. Jeez. So buyers are very obviously interested in this to try to keep this back up to the highs. The positive 1 DP is all the way up at 1800. That's got potential. Over on crude oil, man, this is a lovely one, huh? We've got a whole lot of wick on the highs of the candle that's forming right now, but there's still some time left. As it stands, I mean, the market tried rotating back down. This obviously didn't hold very well, but it broke above support. Down, resistance. I mean, if it does want to flush, a logical point of interest would be right there. And if we're looking at it from a dynamic standpoint, a dynamic plus half DP to the upside to the bottom half, well, realistically, that is that's a one move, right? So that's important information because, well, that at least adds a bit of probability down here that buyers would want to rotate like that. So it doesn't look great right now, and I certainly don't want to be a buyer way the heck up here. But if we can get a rotation down back towards those 6120s, that would be a really nice zone of interest to try to kick that back up. And it looks like that lines up almost perfectly with an L4. Yep. Lots of stuff waiting down there. See if we can get down there. Over on the euro, we've got some good continuation back to the upside. Again, I don't think it'll be way that far out. We've got a fairly obvious diverged low. But more importantly, this is also, from a trend perspective, a continuation in the MACD that is still holding this upward bias. So this has been diverging for a lot longer than just these most recent lows, because this was also a low. It's been going for a minute, all the way back up. Now, we did have a slight divergence at the highs, barely. But it was enough to kick it back to a two-legged correction lower. Let's see where they were able to pull that back to. If we measure the volume from the bottom to the top, looking lo and behold, and wow. You want to know why they found some support here? It's just a reload. Buyers were long from there already. They still like it. More proof. Good bullish continuation. This wants to see the highs. If we build this volume a little bit further forward, that'll give us a cleaner picture. We can see they're fighting over it a bit, but generally speaking, from the top down at least, accumulation volume with a POC at the bottom. Longs are long, and they're profitable right now. So, confidence is on their side. Bitcoin continuing this gargantuan rally to the upside. Absolutely incredible movement. This drive higher is nuts. If this is potentially trying to get a spike in channel highs, we're right at the top of it, and we're seeing a bit of proof. This is only the first test of the spike in channel top, and a lot of times when you get those, they'll come back because they're waiting to see, oh, did it actually bounce or not? As long as it doesn't slide too far down, you won't see the buyers run. But when it comes back up, that's where you expect to see the response, because they know there's proof there now, right? They don't have to second guess themselves anymore. So as soon as it starts getting back up into those high closes, into the highs, the spike in channel highs, etc., that's going to be a big spot. Not to mention the fact that this 55,000 area is a massive objective for the buyers that were accumulating this low. Remember when we draw back, we were looking at their average and their risk reward. This is their 2-to-1 at 55,000. So we're right in that major 2-to-1 objective. That's not necessarily saying that this needs to reverse right now. In fact, if anything, it would more likely stall because you would expect to see profit taking. We know that the volume looks a little bit funky here. Oh, no, 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 not on Bitcoin. Oh, I made a mistake. Oh, no. Oh, close the chart. Whew. Avoided. Avoided. Okay. Oh, man. For those of you who don't know, if you have your active data for Coinbase running and you draw a volume profile on it, at least on Bitcoin, I don't know what in the world it does, but it reaches down the chart's throat and just grinds it to a halt. It completely crashes your charts. Hang on. I've got to duplicate a new one here and reload Bitcoin. Disaster avoided. Sheesh. The order flow does not like live Coinbase data. At least not for me. All right, let me switch this back. BTC, UST. Been there, done that. No thanks. All right, anyway. I'll look at the volume on TradingView. But the assumption would be that the volume, I believe, was built somewhere around the 49s to 50s. I don't remember exactly where. But their first objective, 2-to-1, was right back up into these 55s, which they are achieving at the moment. Now, as far as Ethereum goes, Ethereum never had that low, which is a real bummer because it could have really used one. Even a trap down here, something. This dip was good enough, and it just goes screaming to the upside here as well. Massive continuation higher, but we can see a very obvious wedge, and this thing is running out of time. There's not a whole lot of time left before this thing needs to finish up and do something before we get a breakout. A breakout to the upside, I mean, it's definitely possible. It's Ethereum, right? It's crypto. I think Ethereum should be worth, as far as market capitalization, way more than Bitcoin. I think it brings a lot more to the table. There are a lot more coins that are coming to the table that could potentially challenge Ethereum now because Ethereum is not developing fast enough. The 2.0 thing, that's going to be that's a big push, but I digress without going down that rabbit hole. If it does break higher, that could put us in totally new discovery territory. I mean, it's never been, that's all-time highs again on Ethereum, and that's nuts. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Because if you look at all of these exchanges and all of these, like Venmo allowing crypto and Cash App buying Bitcoin and all of these different things, well, in order to transact those, maybe not Bitcoin, but Ethereum and all of these other things that are developed on some form of an Ethereum blockchain, well, in order to send those coins, it costs gas. Gas is part of Ethereum. So in order for those transactions to take place, they have to hold Ethereum. So they have to buy it. They don't have a choice. So it makes sense, right, what it's doing. And if it breaks higher, it makes sense. But taking a bullish pattern and breaking higher is incredibly difficult to sustain. It requires a huge amount of capital to get that job done, which is why I started with the bullish side first, because I think out of all of them, Ethereum has the chance to get it done. But if it can't get the job done, there is a very obvious undertow here. And with this massively obvious undertow at the highs, that's just suggestive of a deeper pullback. That doesn't mean that it's got to go, screaming all the way back down to sub 2,000. But what that does tell us is maybe instead of an L1, we expect an L2. Or if I were looking for an L2, I would look for an L3. Just something a little bit deeper than you would expect. It could use it, that's for sure. But as long as this keeps going up, nothing's stopping it. Taking a look at the NASDAQ on the daily perspective. We do have that L1 continuation, and the L1 buyers have been rewarded. And it only took them, from the first test, including that day, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days to get back up to the objectives? That's nuts. 5 days for a 2% bounce on the NASDAQ? I mean, when you're looking at options, that 2% becomes a heck of a lot more. That's insane. So huge movement to the upside. A lot of buyers are obviously taking objectives here. We're back to those all-time highs. Here again, we have to look back at what's happened historically. When the market hits and closes above all-time highs, does it close on top of all-time highs? Today is going to be a big story at around 59.50. What does it do here at the end of the day? Because that will tell us how to kind of approach the rest of the day. If we put this on, I'm going to put this on all charts, and 10 should be fine. Oh, that's right. It's not going to show up on here. Crap. No, I can't. Oh, wait. Did I just bug the system? Did I get around it? Maybe. Well, anyway, we've got this bullish continuation to the upside. They obviously hold the L1s. We've got really nice profit-taking zones. We can see if they do pull back, I want them to pull back 13,200. I mean, we're a mile and a half away from that. So, oops, I am by no means expecting that anytime soon. If you look at the 60-minute perspective, we've got, 8 minutes until the open? We still got time. If you look at the 60-minute perspective, get rid of these. All right. So here we have an accumulation where we know that, in this case, obviously, these were sellers taking profit. But if they were buyers, they got dumpstered. When the market came all the way back up, it went underneath them. That offered up a beautiful shorting opportunity, which rotated the market back down to the moving average cluster, broke back above, and it never really came back, did it? It's kind of like you could think of that as sort of an open gap that's waiting to get filled in. But along those lines, knowing that that one's kind of done in a way, if we go from the bottom all the way to the top, chances are we're going to have volume somewhere in the middle here. Yep, 13,951 quarter. So if buyers are looking for basically a continuation pullback, 951 quarter in that area makes a lot of sense. That would be the zone of interest that they would want to try to pull back to. Keep in mind, this is a 60-minute chart, so that might not happen today. But it could, and that would be the zone of interest. It's only a half DP move down. It's definitely in the realm of possibility. 68% possibility, in fact. So overall, looking pretty good. Well, at least 38, right? Now, the other consideration would be looking on this previous leg down. That was a very nice two-legged continuation down. We might be able to derive a bit more emphasis on the 15-minute. Yeah, this doesn't give us enough detail. So let's go from the 60-minute down to the 15. And here we can really see what was that two-legged correction like? What kind of volume were they pushing into that move? All right, plain as day. Accumulation volume down to 13,915. After that, it looks like they gave up a little bit. Might have even hit some stops underneath the low. There's a VVP there, pretty obvious one. Flushed down to find the next pocket of volume and eventually rolled back up. And, well, you can see what they did there. If you were here on Sunday, you know exactly what happened there. Quick bounce right back up. Sorry, on Saturday when we had our webinar. Massive rally all the way higher, and now we're not really doing anything. So if the market is going to pull back a little bit, I would love to see it pull back to the 915s. That would be a nice zone, and then lines up pretty nicely with, the 900s around that area. That would put it right around a negative 1 DP move lower. It's got some pretty good probability to bounce off of that zone anyway. All in all, that would be a really nice area, at least for an option potential. And as we look at the, as we look at the NASDAQ on the 500 tick, the Asian session and the Euro session are stacked once again. The important part, typically when that happens, is the side that it decides to defend, right? Yesterday, we saw them trying to defend this as resistance, 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 resistance. Couldn't get the job done. That's why I wanted the pullback. Didn't get that pullback. But buyers looking for a reversal back up because the rest of the day, as long as they stay above that, if they go into lunch, usually continues up. So what happens today is going to be pretty important. Got to see what side of this they stay on. All right. And here we sit going into the open without a whole lot going on, really. And here we sit. Open right around the corner. Not a whole lot going on from that. Man, on crypto, BNB. If you grab that play that we were talking about in Discord last night, that bounce off BNB was incredible. Holy crap. That thing is gone. Left the station. Sheesh. The calm before the storm. That's definitely how it's feeling. 928 is going to be the big one because 928 is the end of the at the open order modification. So that's when the last big jerk of volume comes in. First time I see the difference from RTH close the settlement price on MNQ is down at 3/4. Wow, it's that big? Man, they nailed a bunch of stops at the end of the day then, huh? 928. You see that? One entire candle just showed up. One candle on the 500 tick chart is 500 trades. It's just materialized. Starting to pull down off of that movement, though. I mean, as far as what's been going on from the top to the bottom, at least. Oh, lovely. POC was already built smack in the middle. So that kind of appears to be what we're sort of fighting over. The earlier buyers were probably trying to buy this pullback, looking for continuation up. It failed. And now, after going above their break even, back down, back up, back down, it's a little bit of a warning sign. I think a bigger warning sign would be shorting the NASDAQ, but you know. Open in 1 minute. Right around the corner. All right. Opens right around the corner. Let's see if it brings anything to the table. Nice bull bar back up. Trying to get back above that break-even point. Now remember, these earlier longs who were long off of that 14.030, they're going to want to see a continuation move off of this. Looking for a little bounce back up. Hey, my shortcuts work. Yes! I just need to dry out. Sweet. Oh, yeah, that makes me so happy. My shortcuts work. My keyboard's not broken. Well, as bad as it, as bad as I thought, at least. All right, big drive to the downside off of the Euro session lows, back underneath settlement. So the longs who tried to rebuy off of that dip and try to hold for a break higher, they were not rewarded. They got slammed, and they are stuck right now, which is good information for the short-term scalp to the downside. Sellers will be looking for a continuation move, looking for those buyers to kind of run for the hills. All of their stops, though, will be below the lows. The POC's still at 30. It hasn't changed. Can big tech companies' earnings reports, there's so many plurals in that sentence. It's right. It's just companies' earnings, his reports move the NASDAQ. Definitely, 100%. Especially the big names, Amazon, Apple. I mean, any of the big tech stock ones will, yeah, definitely move the NASDAQ around. A few, yeah. Let's see. You can always go to earnings whispers, another lovely plurals one. Earnings whispers. Yeah, it is actually plural. That's really funny. The irony. But you can go to earningswhispers.com, and that will show you all of the earnings for this week. So as an example for, you can look at like today, since there's not really anything I want to do on the NASDAQ at the bottom of the range. If you go to, if you take a look at it, you can see what is before the market open BMO or after the market close. So before the market open's already done. So if you look at AMC after the market close, you've got AMD, Microsoft, Pinterest, Google. just a few, that could definitely move the markets around. And then also another one to check would be Wednesday, tomorrow. So if you go to the 28th before the market open, Shopify, Boeing, that'll be more of an impact on the Dow. Spotify, there's a few, not as much before the market open though. After the market closed today though, definitely. So from where today closes to where tomorrow opens could be a pretty big difference. Not as big as if you saw like Amazon or Google, or not Google, Apple, I mean. Google will shake it up though. Getting massively stuck here at the lows of the Euro session. Sellers trying to get this to rotate back down. A really nice sell side move. So far it's been a higher low. A lot of the sellers who are trying to pressure that move down might have just jumped ship there. That could be a little bit of an open door for bulls. You can see them kind of reverse hands a little bit where the shorts got in underneath that bear bar. The market came down, went back up, and then went back down, all the way back down. Immediately around their break even, it snapped up. And then when it went down underneath this little swing low, you could almost feel the buyers or the sellers being like, yep, that's good enough. Bye, 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 and exit their shorts. And that's how it responded. So again, that kind of opened the door for the bulls to slide it up. 14.030 becomes a zone of interest. First 5-minute bar is in. S&P built it at 80.75. And the NASDAQ, what a lovely 5-minute bar you have there. They built it at 14.015. Oof. First test of the 14.030. Sellers obviously responded. I'm busy messing around with lines here. Thanks, NASDAQ. Big slide back down, big rotation, and a lot of the buyers who were long have very obviously just jumped ship. I missed the initial entry on the future side, but from a options standpoint, which honestly, given that you'd be having to short the indexes, I'd be more comfortable with. Hang on. The options on the short side would be looking for a continuation lower on this type of rotation. underneath 14,030. More likely, at least in my mentality, if the sellers are going to succeed, they're going to drive very aggressively lower with a miss at the highs. So this, in my mind, would be more of like an out of the money scenario where you're looking for like way down at the lows at the negative half DP or something, just to see if they can cycle way down here at the 950s, or the equivalent on the QQQ, of course. Oh man, that's a heck of a bull bar off the bottom. Wow. Now, again, we already know the story. A lot of the buyers have already jumped ship at 14,030. So if this bull bar falls flat on its face, that could be a clue that it just suckered in a lot of buyers at the bottom. I'm looking for a short move on that flush. A lot of buyers just realize they're on the wrong side. There we go. Beautiful flush back down. Oh man, played that like a fiddle. You can see the buyers tried. They're like, yes, we got it. And then that bear bar just showed up. And everyone's like, whoa, wait a minute. No, get me out. Yep. Now, if they were long, this is their chance to get out of break even. This is a retest of the earlier entry point. I think a lot of that movement was mostly on scalps, though. I'm less interested this time around. That was mostly a psychological jerk reaction. It was fast, too. They're still hovering around this 14,015 area. Very fast snap down. Thank you, Hotkeys, for working today. I appreciate it. That'll make my life a little bit easier, hopefully. Now, any of the shorts who were trying to re-enter that are having a little bit of trouble. So if it does start dipping back down, then perhaps they jump ship. But, I mean, again, remember, the objective is to see where we hold off the Euro session and where it breaks down from. So far, it's staying underneath, or at least it's trying to. Oh, jeez. So the short side, the puts, the longer term side of things still makes a little bit more sense here. How crazy would it be to get a back flush down to like the 920s, fill in some of this weird gapping they had yesterday, and then have that be the low? Just go screaming all the way back up. You know what? 920. Hang on. Just because I know I'm not going to be paying attention at that point if it goes way down there. Look for like half of a contract in terms of the micro from that perspective. Way down there. I mean, that's a heck of a reach, but if it does, they're there. Sellers who re-shorted were given the opportunity to go back down to the lows and take some targets. If it starts breaking down below this, though, this is where buyers will start giving up. Remember, we've already seen the buyers give up. We've already got proof of the buyers giving up. That's why they're shorts in the first place. But this would be even further context. S&P, holy crap. That is a bear bar down. Lordy, lordy. I don't know what crude oil is even doing right now. What are these candles on crude? That's nasty. A little bit of a pullback on Bitcoin down to the lows. That Bitcoin's starting to snap back. I mean, again, the big thing with crypto as a whole is that it needs that pullback. It's so overextended. It's got to dip back a little bit. As far as the BNB move to the upside goes, I am no longer in it, personally. This gigantic move all the way to the upside, 6% overnight, not including like any leverage or anything, that's nuts. So if anything, you would just be holding the residual. Further seller continuation of the downside on the NASDAQ. Getting a lot of downward pressure here. The crypto side's getting whacked a little bit, at least on the short term. I'm looking at like 15-minute charts, keep in mind. Absolutely beautiful churn off that volume reversal. Doge is getting slapped right now. Doge is negative. The first one into negative territory, at least on my watch list. 2.2 billion on the volume scale. Just a bit. Obviously, Dogecoin is 25 cents. So, big flush to the downside. Hey, you know, man, we might get that, not only the puts, but the this pickup down here on the micros. What are some markets that look interesting? On the crypto side, in the short term, is what I'm looking at on the 15-minute perspective. I am the big one that I'm really paying attention to right now. Well, I mean, there's a few of them, but without giving them all up, at least Link is definitely on my radar, especially as that big dip. That big dip that they had was an absolutely incredible flush. I mean, we talked about Litecoin yesterday. That one was already on the radar. Link is another one. If you weren't able to grab it on that big flush lower down into the 30s, that big psychological $30 bounce, the next point of interest that they've built up volume is on the 35s. Sorry, I'm talking about, I'm not even showing it on the screen. Let me pull my head out of my behind here. So we've got this move to the upside, and we've got this big volume cluster right in the middle. And that would be the point of interest. If there were shorts, or for whatever reason, people trying to hold the market down from the 35 mark on Link, they failed. And now that they have failed, we've already seen proof that they've already taken that chance to potentially reverse, or buyers have taken that chance to buy on the dip. So if they can get a dip back down into the 35s from a psychological perspective, that is a huge zone that I am interested in. Full disclosure, I am long on Link right now. So take that how you will, but my average on Link is, I don't know, 31-ish, something, 31 half. I don't know the exact price. I can look. More continuation to the downside. Exchange to... There it is. Why did they do it backward? One... What? I don't know how they... I don't understand how they did their math. It's all backward. 1 HUSD equals Link 0.03138.385. Whatever that ends up being, I don't know. $31.50 maybe? This is somewhere around there, sure. I've never seen math done that way. More continuation to the downside, and sellers are obviously pummeling this move to the downside. We already know what's going on here. As far as retraces, though, there haven't been a whole lot. We do have a structural reversal off of an L4, so this is definitely clear for takeoff. We had the volume shift at 14.030, and that was an L3. Finally broke down into an L1. They tried grabbing that too, but they couldn't get it. Broke down, and now they can't even get an L1. So sellers are obviously trying to just flush this thing lower. This move down on crypto. Hi-ho, hi-ho. I might just load up on a few of these. Are any of them dipping? I mean, Doge is the only one that even went negative for a second. It's not much of a dip. Tron got a halfway decent one. Still no L1s. Sellers will be looking for one. Still just getting slammed. If we look at the overall volume from top to bottom, I mean, obviously we already know what happened. The volume shifted at 30 and the sellers just swarmed. So far, though, it's profit taking. So, no bottom in sight. Not yet. Thing's just getting annihilated. Jeez. How close are we? Oh, man, we still got a long way to go. Oh, never mind. You can keep getting hammered then. That's fine. You got a ways to go until I get interested on the swing long side. Sellers will be watching this L1. Possible V bottom reversal off of the lows. NASDAQ good boy bringing Bitcoin down. Yep. Got to get them fills. Initial resistance off of L1. Look for sellers to re-short this back down towards the lows here, now that we've got some proof. Beautiful flush. Right there. Very nice. Right back down to the original entry point from the longs. Gorgeous rejection. I was only able to grab one. It didn't stick around very long. But the next one is going to be down to at least the low closes. Set maybe like 71. And then, obviously, continuation. 10 o'clock news around the corner in about 12 minutes. So keep that in the back of the old mind here. Possible selling pressure back above on the 500 tick, this previous bear bar, above its highs. Just with sellers looking to vindict another entry back down. Just needs a quick little jump up. Take out a bunch of the short stops so shorts can reaccumulate into them and push it back down again. Or it'll just go down again. All right. No chance for a re-entry. But back down to the secondary objectives into the 71s. Obviously, people took profit. Jeez. Just a 5-point bounce. No big deal. Still no end in sight. No lows. Keep on grinding. L1s so far are the way. Another bear bar low, but sellers will sell it for a scalp. I'm not fast enough to take those kinds of scalps. I know my luck. It'll go down. I'll miss my opportunity. It'll jump up 20 ticks. I'll exit, and then it'll drop 70. I'll stay away from those. I'd rather be still short from the top anyway. I just didn't have a chance to get more than one. There'll be more opportunities. More continuation to the downside. POC, even on this most recent leg, is still weighted at the 05s. Man, we are getting close. 920s. Give me that big boy flush all the way down to the 920s. See if we can get down there. L1's still looking like it's the way because objectives are still wide open. The 50-minute chart's getting annihilated. Crypto's trying to bounce back up. I need them to flush a lot further. 10 o'clock around the corner here in about 9.5 minutes-ish. More continuation of the downside. Sellers still following through. Couldn't even get down to the L1 again. Jeez. Big push to the downside. You can see volumes all over the place on this move down. It's taking people by surprise. All that herky-jerky volume are people repositioning, jumping out, jumping in, trying to do whatever they can with this move. This is what you could call unstable volume. Do we buy? Do we sell? I don't know. Should we buy? Maybe buy. Maybe accumulate? No. Let's take profit. No, maybe we should accumulate. Everyone's trying to figure out what the heck to do down here. And down here is relative because it keeps changing. Big volume support coming off the negative half DP at 950. The larger POC still up at the 14.030s. Let's go from top to present bottom. Done with the short and going long and building in. Nice job. I mean, the short, you could see it at the 1430, like we were talking about, more on the option side of things. In the case of futures, even the futures would have worked. It barely took any risk. But from the option side, I just saw that there was more of an opportunity on that end, at least for me personally. But either way, I mean, incredible drive to the downside. I'm glad you were able to capitalize on it. Good job. I don't blame any. I mean, buyers buying down here, this is BTFD territory. This thing's getting whacked. If you're looking at like a 15-minute value perspective, at least, that might give us a bit of a way to justify a zone of interest. So, again, 915 is going to be a big one. 920s, 915s in that area. But if we go from the bottom to the present top, look where we are. It's hard to not justify a long here. Might be a little bit early, but I can't say I disagree with you. 10 o'clock around the corner in 5 minutes. We are back to the L1. I'm a little bit spooked, though, because we're bouncing really well off of this negative half DP, so I mean, there will be L1 shorts here, but we've got top of the hour and the only news at 10 o'clock. We've got to bounce off a negative half. There's a lot of things happening right now that I think I'd rather just kind of sit on hands at the moment. What's the S&P doing? The S&P... I tell you what the S&P does in response to this last bull bar is going to be very important. Unfortunately, that decision is going to be made at 10 o'clock news. Bulls back up to the L1. All right, sellers trying to reclaim their move, and that bear bar down will get sellers involved for sure. Time of day and everything's just a little bit awkward. I would rather sit on hands for now. But shorts will definitely try to take this to the downside. Inside support's going to be 55.50. If they can get through that, then they'll probably take the lows. Couldn't get through it the first time. Ooh, there they go. To the tick again. Negative half DP support. Whoa, wait. Did they close back above it again? Holy cow. That was a huge failure down there. You can see sellers are jumping ship. Now, this is a potential chance for sellers to reload at this higher point. Maybe even a quick retest of L1. So, immediate snap bearishness to the downside could be followed up with a bit more. I just have a really hard time wanting to sell this far down anymore. At least not for very long. Nice little inside bear bar to try to get the job done. Building a lot of volume down here. Not enough to shift the POC or anything, but 1 minute until the news. S&P is still driving lower. The NASDAQ hasn't quite given up yet, but it does feel like it's close. This kind of pending news around the corner, I think, is messing with it a bit. All of a sudden the market's on pause. Seems like the market's waiting for the news too. Sellers trying to get a quick little push. $10 news. 10 o'clock news. That's the CB consumer confidence. That comes out at 121.7. Forecast is 113. Better than expected. Still no end in sight. No more news today either. I mean, the API numbers later today will be useful. But the line at 950 is the negative half DP to the downside. It's just a zone of support. Not very likely, unless the context was different, not very likely to turn the market around. At least not as likely as something like a negative 1.5 or something. But, oh boy, we're getting down here, huh? Yeah. A little further. Get down those 920s. That's a big old bull bar on the bottom there. $24.25 is as low as it went. Remember what we were talking about? Market coming back and backfilling this gap? And then going all the way back up again? This is a massive long zone down here, right? Swing longs, future longs, stock longs, your ants longs. I don't really care. Buyers are buying down here. I'm just a little bit greedy on the entry from the futures perspective. Options, you've got a bit of wiggle room, obviously, but those out of the monies, huh? Those 950s, huh? Funny how that works. Would like one more leg to the downside, though. This 15-minute chart looks just crazy. $920s down into the 904s. That whole zone. Not really anything else is standing out. At least not yet. Now, the NASDAQ on the structural side, if you're looking at like the 60-minute perspective, the 60-minute perspective, we've got to bounce off of the channel lows. So, that's definitely a zone of interest. Which is bouncing off. I'm a little lower. Just a little lower. Not really anything else. The S&P, I would really like to see it further down in like this 4164s. It's not quite there yet. So the earlier L1 did hold. This L1 had a little bit of trouble. If anything, realistically, we're probably going to be backing off more so into an L2. It's not likely that sellers will just immediately give up. There's a ton of volume building up in the 950s, though. I mean, just out of these little spikes, at least, you can see the accumulation phasing. Looks like we're trying to get a continuation back up towards the L2. Measured move would put it closer to the top of it, though. Okay. I don't know what the heck's going on there. Sellers will be looking for rejections off L2. We already know the L1's on a bit of shaky ground, and more of the emphasis is on the top of the L2. Bears still haven't shifted the POC. They haven't proven that they're willing to put in a bottom yet. Nothing at the moment. So sellers still have the bias. Until we start digging down into the 920s, down to the 900s. What if you miss the trade? Then I missed the trade. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. I could chase the trade, and then it goes all the way down to the lows. I give up a huge amount of profit because I was impatient. Essentially, the way that I approach it is I want the market to chase my entries. If I'm looking to get in these deep limit orders and swings, that kind of stuff. If the market's ready to go, it's going to go without me regardless. I'm not going to be in it. I would rather be out wishing I was in, you know, rather than in wishing I was out. I would much rather wait to see the market because if it's not done, then it is going to go down to the lows. I will get the fill, and then the market will go screaming back to the upside. At least that's the hopes, because that's the primary objective, getting filled. So if I miss it, I miss it. It's no skin off my back. I don't care. I mean, it's a bummer. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's frustrating when you see it get that close. Let's say it goes screaming all the way back up to the high of day right now. Yeah, I mean, it can get under your skin for sure, but it's just part of it. You get used to the NASDAQ being vindictive after a while. POC shifted down to the 950 from the cash open. Gotcha. Yeah. If you're looking at from this swing on the cash open from the top, even this rotation down off of 14,030, because obviously that's where they kind of gave up the ghost. They're fighting. If longs are long, they're long from around the 960s at the moment. And not in a clean way. It was dirty the whole way down. Until they finally found some balance. So it's not very likely that they're sitting on very stable ground yet, which could be a clue that this might just be a position to get out of break even more before another dive. Now, if it does go bouncing above this, then they've got the L2. If it shows support after that, then maybe, right? But before I'm going to become a buyer off of this level, they've got a lot of stuff they're going to have to prove to me first. And I do see the POC shift, by the way. Right there. So at the moment, if longs are building in, it's not very good, but their averages are slightly in the profit to slightly around break even. And even if they did average in down here, which again, the assumption would be that they did, they're back to their original entry point, which they're obviously exiting on. A lot of this gives you clues, because if they start losing 950, it's game over. Well, in the short term. You can also look at from the bottom to top and see what they're doing. So a lot of that volume came in there. So sellers were trying to sell for continue. Look what they did, even on the micro phase. It's way too fast for a human to respond to. But even in the micro phase, they built up into the short. They didn't like the short. They bailed. It just happened in milliseconds. That's all. It's crazy. Back to the 950s again. See if the sellers can break back down. This is the point where if the sellers are going to take it, they got to get through. Let's see. Sign up plenty of 34 megs fast enough to trade on? Yeah, that'd be all right. As long as the big thing is consistent connection. Like a consistent 10 megabit connection is going to be significantly better than an inconsistent 30-bit. You know what I mean? If you're constantly disconnecting and it's a mess and all over the place, it's not going to be any better than if it were slower anyway. But if it's a consistent connection that's stable, then yeah, 34 is fine. I mean, the faster the better, obviously, but you'd be all right with 34. So maybe don't download the Spotify playlists. 34 would be all right. Buyers still defending this 950. Kinda. Haven't gotten to the L2 yet. Man, this short-term volume, they are in a fight. Oh, they closed back above it. Oh, no. Oh, if the shorts tried taking that too early, they might feel like they're a bit stuck if this puts on too much bullish pressure. Oops, that was a fat finger on my part. I did not mean for that. worked out in my favor, but I didn't mean for that. I had my finger ready for a quick little juke down underneath the 950s if volume shifted, but... Buyers still defending the 950, so where that closed, that's a big clue. Let's see what happens when it comes back. What a fist fight. On the S&P, they are dipping below the previous bull bar. Buyers will be looking to try to pick up some value here. That is also around the 4172s. Speaking of value, that's what we were doing last time around. If we have this initial move from top to bottom, that gives us a value pullback 0.82. $1.75. There we go. So as far as the value pullbacks, I mean, we've already hit the narrower value. That's job's done. That's already been hit. That was at 932, 33-ish. The larger one, if that wants to follow through, is going to be down here. That is one heck of a drop, but that would be a zone of interest. Now, another way that we can kind of re-solidify this area, if we double down this drop, and because I'm going to be doubling it, I want to make sure that this is exact. I want to go from top to bottom. 0.83. Okay. Just wanted to be sure. So 0.83, what I would be looking for then would be a double value. Let me just put it there. 0.83 times 2, 1.66, 1.66, yeah. So this is the hot spot. Right there. 13.817. That's where the stars align. I don't know if it's going to make it there. Oh, man. This bear bar down's re-challenging the 13.950s. Very important to see how they respond to this. They closed underneath it. All of the longs who were long from this 950, they're going to start thinking, crap. Wait a minute. This is no good. They're jumping ship. Here they go. Goodbye. Goodbye. One more big flush. Grab those 920s. It's right there. A little bit more. Come on. Big stop run. A little more. Small little bounce on a higher low. A little more. We got about 15 minutes until we hit training time. And, I mean, realistically, there's not really a whole lot going on unless we can get this dip down to the 920s. So, if you got any questions or anything, feel free to get those in. We'll get those covered for you. Get training time out of the way maybe a bit early. NASDAQ with this higher low. Buyers on the option side will be buying in, but this could be an early trap just to get buyers to buy a bit high for that quick stop run flush down to the 20s. Sometimes those quick little stop runs need some fuel. That might have just been a refueling station. Yep. There we go. Refueling complete. Blam! Jeez. I was only able to grab 2, huh? All right. Well, in terms of the objectives, and the reason why I'm not exiting anything on this is because the objective now is for this to close bullish on the day. The reason, and JT, the reason and the answer to your question is because I want to see them backfill this gap they left behind yesterday and demonstrate support. If they demonstrate support here, which they obviously have already, then we should be screaming back out of here and closing this as a bear bar that looks something along the lines of what I'm hoping for, at least this, to potentially a doji, to potentially a bull bar all the way back up to the all-time highs. I'm effectively looking for a major reversal off of this. The nice thing is, and the reason for this is because markets don't like gaps. And it already did fill it once, but this kind of left people in the dust. It went screaming higher yesterday. So the fact that it's finally pulled back is giving people a chance to reposition. This might not be the bottom. I'm expecting 930s down to the 900s. Could even potentially dip below today's or yesterday's low. But this zone down here is major. And that's why I like it on the micro scale, because you can go in with like half of one contract. Makes it a little bit more flexible, you know? But that's the reasoning as to why. I want to see today, at the end of the day, in the next 6.5 hours, closing relatively high up in its range, back up towards the 14,000s. So if you were, I mean, there were going to be a lot of buyers buying off of that area anyway, and I'm sure a lot of traders took profit on that immediate bounce. That went up like, what, 70 ticks initially? Hard for people not to want to take that. I was only able to get 2. Had I known I was only going to get 2, I would have just thrown it on the regular. Oh well. So the objective for this, I would like to see it climb back up to 977 would be the first objective. That would be inside that previous day's high. Just to be safe up in the 80s. Right? What is this day's high? 81. Oh, we got a little more. 81. Like 79. Secondary objective would be back up to just hold on to the highs. Just let it go screaming. So now that it was only able to give me 2, let's see if we can get slightly better zones of interest now. Yeah. Oops. There. I'm not going to wait for the whole move. I know myself. I'll self-sabotage and mess the trade up. I'll take it here. Thanks. Yeah. Hey, I mean, at least you know, right? That's the first part. It's the, what was that? The first step? It's knowing. Great work. So first objective into the 79s. Secondary objective, I mean, we might run into some issues around the Euro session lows because, again, how these days operate on the Euro lows when you have them stacked on top of the Asian session will be important. But the way that I'm looking at this, again, is that the market needed to come back and kind of backfill some unfinished business from before, which is what it's doing right now. Is this the bottom right this second and we go screaming higher? I mean, yeah, I hope so. I'm long, so that'd be great. But is that the probability? No. We'll probably do something like this for a little while before they find a low. I still feel like I'm early to the party. I'm only on the second press down. But if we look at this last move from bottom to top, if it will let me. Is that 960s? So this is why I feel early, because if the market's going to reverse this, they have to get back above the 960s. We've got to see some continue. I mean, you can see my targets above that, but they've got to get back above the 960s, higher low, continuation, Euro session lows. There's a lot of stuff in the way. That's why I would still expect this to come back down again. Might not, though. That'd be great. Well, kind of. Looking across the board on the bigger picture, we are bouncing off the NASDAQ on the massive channel lows as well. S&P still did not get the L2. They missed it by a little bit. Gold has gone nowhere. I don't even think the gold market's awake. Euro, little bit of divergence off the lows, but still not a whole lot going on. Crude oil's got a ways to go. All right. Well, we are moving into training time, so feel free to get those questions in. I'll get those covered for you, and then we'll wrap it up. Pretty solid day overall. See if we can hang on to this micro for a little while. And here it sits. Trying to make up its mind. Could you talk a bit more about the BNB setup you talked about in Discord? I see the screenshot, but could you explain what you were looking at? It's a bit hard to read. Yeah, sure. So when you're looking at, well, first off here. So this was the, actually, let me just do it this way. Get the screenshots. Open original, right? Yep. There we go. All right. So the reason why I was looking at this area and the reason why I liked this area as a whole on BNB, it's from an hourly basis, keep in mind. But what we have here is, first off, all of these measurements are from top to bottom, right? And then from bottom to top, and then from top to bottom. And you can see every single time, whether it went up or down, they built it right in the middle. Smack in the middle. But what did we just end up happening, right? We had this major double bottom low. Then we came up, tried trapping that next low. Ended up being a trap in hindsight. Obviously, that helps to have hindsight to kind of prove that. But then we had another trap and another continuation back up. But more so than just any old continuation, it ripped above every single one of them. So when it pulls back to that area, you better believe I'm interested in those longs. At that point in time, it was around 533. What did it end up going here? Let me get the Binance chart over here. What did it end up going up to? 579. It's at 563 at the moment. But that's why I like that zone. It's just a huge failure. They gave up and they flipped it. As far as objectives to the upside, you can look at logical points of interest. The first point, realistically, while the market was pulling back, you'd have buyers down to the lows. So the assumption would be that these earlier buyers would want to probably get out at break even if they're able to. Well, they're above break even, and they're actually defending as well off 560. So everything is bullish. I have no bearish case for BNB right now. None. Zero. I can't find a single one. 15 minutes, that could change, but. So that's what I mean by that zone is they broke all the way through it. It smashed through them. It really proved it. Right? It wasn't just like a little poke above the top and then sort of give up. I mean, it blew through the wall. So when it backed up again, that's where you load up. Sniping psychology tips. First off, if you're going to be sniping the psychological basis, which is what a lot of what I did today, I didn't really have a chance for any swings aside from the one that's going on the NASDAQ right now. Everything else is basically psychological scalps. When you're sniping those, the first and foremost, the biggest part of it, you have to have hotkeys because otherwise you're just not going to be fast enough. Hotkeys are a necessity, but as you've seen, assume that you're human, right? Because you will accidentally fat finger the key. It doesn't matter how hard you make it. You will accidentally hit that button. I do it all the time. Just, that's the side effect of it. There are safety measures and things you can do and make them super complicated things, but at least have hotkeys, because that's going to be the easiest way to get around it in terms of speed of execution. Secondary, you really have to kind of have an understanding of the current flow in the current situation of what's going on. You'll notice, like right now, I'm relatively detached. I haven't been paying as much attention to the NASDAQ as I was earlier. So right now would be a terrible time for me to try to psychologically scalp, because I'm detached from the story. I don't really know what's going on, right? I know what's going on from here. I know what's going down, generally speaking, but I'm not part of the story right now. You really have to have a feel for when you're in it and when you're not. And right now, I know for a fact I'm not. This would be a terrible time for me to scalp. So kind of having a self-understanding is pretty important when it comes to that, as another tip. But, aside from that, as long as you're able to execute relatively quickly, the approach, the style of trading, etc., everything else stays the same. Nothing changes. Holy crap, Ethereum. 2,600. This thing's gone. All-time highs. New price discovery. Sorry, just got taken off guard. Jeez, oh Pete. Well, that would explain why Binance is going nuts, huh? Anyway. So from a psychological perspective, you got to be quick. You have to be able to admit when you're wrong. And you have to be able to flip your opinion very quickly if you're going to be on the scalping side, especially if you go faster than 500 tick. There's a few traders that I work with who trade on 125 ticks. Some of them trade in different time zones, obviously, so that will have an impact. But I have a 125 tick off to the side. Very, very fast time frames can be utilized. You just have to be quick enough to keep up with them. And sometimes I'm not. Personally, I'll mess up, or I'll miss my order just because I didn't hit it a millisecond faster. And that's where you have to be able to say, yeah, oh crap, I'm wrong. Get me out at whatever I can get. You have to be able to admit when you're wrong more quickly, not really have an ego. An ego when you're sniping in psychology will annihilate you. I mean, an ego will annihilate you in the markets anyway, but. Hopefully it helps. I know they're not anything specific, but from the Day Trading Academy side of things, if you go into the academy, this is where you can get more on the psychological scalping, sniping, going nuts kind of stuff. Whoops. I'll come back over here. If you have the academy, at least, if you go into the Day Trading Academy, and go into all the way at the bottom. So you've got the jump start, which helps you just kind of get, obviously, jump started. You've got the main Day Trading Academy, Unit 1, 2, 3. But then all the way at the bottom, way down here, Section 6, it's the deep dive. This is a little bit older material. This is some of the older stuff, but it's still relevant. And obviously, if it's super old, then it goes in here. But if you want to really dig into that, I mean, you've got, man, probably another 20 to 60 hours worth of video in here. I don't know. It's been a minute since I've actually calculated the amount of time. But there's a huge amount of information in here that you can go over as well. So. Yeah, definitely. No problem. Do you mean day traders have an ego? Well, not for long. You typically don't keep an ego for very long. No, definitely. If you wanted to find some of the most egomaniacal SOBs in the world, traders and anything that involves money, you're going to find them. But a lot of times you'll also see those same people making some pretty risky bets. It just so happens that in the past it worked out, and that's what paid for the Lambo. You don't make money by risking nothing. A little bit of cockiness comes along with that, usually. But if you bring that to the markets, it'll correct that mentality very quickly. So how they act in the real world versus how they act in the market's totally different. It's just like the old saying, whatever happened at home, don't bring it to work. Don't bring the ego to work. It gets expensive. Oh, everybody has one, right? And I mean, we can pretend as much as we want that we don't have an ego, but that's just not the case, right? And trying to shut it down and kind of desensitize yourself to it is just going to hurt more than anything else. You have to really accept the fact that you have the ego and understand when the ego is kicking in. It's much more beneficial to know yourself in that sense rather than try to ignore it and pretend that it doesn't exist, because it does, regardless of how well you pretend. We all have one. It's just part of being human. But at least knowing what's going on in the ego can help. Anyway, going past 10:30. Pretty solid day overall from the options perspective. Absolutely annihilated it on the options perspective. From the futures perspective, longs are still in and they're still going. Looking for the first objective. Got to get through these 900s. First area 979. After that, I want to see this thing close all the way back up towards the 14,000s, 1420s, maybe even back up to all-time highs. We'll see. But either way, I was only able to grab 2. It's not really much I can do about that. We'll see if it wants to come back later in the day. Otherwise, just looking for it to keep going. If I missed any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. I'll get you covered from there. jhb@ssftg.com. That will do it, though. Enjoy the rest of the day. You'll be able to watch this recording back whenever you want. It's on YouTube, so you can just rewind it and flip it and reverse it and whatever else you want to do. I don't know if you saw that tweet that I posted. I'll leave it as a surprise. It was really funny. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the day. I hope you had a great one, and we will see you all tomorrow morning, all right? Have a good one. We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks.